What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. This is the Texans Better Talk Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily Texans content. And I appreciate all the support we've been getting. We've talked about the O-line. We've talked about wide receivers. Go check the channel for those videos. Now let's talk about some potential tight ends I think the Texans should draft. Now, right off the jump, let me say Tyler Warren will not be on this list because I doubt he gets past Indy, which is like 15, and he might even go before that. So Tyler Warren's a beast, great tight end. I realistically do not see him being there when the Texans pick at 25 or later, obviously. Also, one thing I kind of want to preface with this video is you might be going to yourself and thinking, we don't need a tight end. We have a lot of bodies in the tight end room. We need weapons. We need receivers. Now, that is true. That's 100% true. And I do think a receiver should be taken in the first round. However, let's talk about the tight end room for the Houston Texans for a second. You've got Dalton Schultz, who's been underperforming on all levels, not even including his $13 million a year contract. That's a terrible contract. He's underperforming. He can't block. It seems like he's lost a lot of juice from his earlier days in Dallas, and even since last year, or I guess 2 years ago. So you have Dalton Schultz as your tight end one. Brevin Jordan is coming off an ACL tear. So he's on a 1 year contract. You don't really know what you're going to get out of him after the injury. I really liked Brevin Jordan, but yeah, I mean, he's coming off an injury. And I like Cade Stover. I think his potential is there. I don't know if you want to rely on him to be a tight end too. I think he does decent job at blocking, as does Brevin. But again, I don't think the receiving threat's there, and I don't think he can be classified as like a weapon you can depend upon. And that's going to be kind of the topic of this conversation is I want tight ends who are going to be used as receivers. Like if we're going to draft a tight end in the top, first round, second round, third round, I want them to be a receiving threat. And everyone on my list is going to be classified as a tight end that's a receiving threat. Don't get me wrong, we also need tight ends that are blockers. I think the best example of that is, signing Irv Smith or trying to make it work with Quintiriano. But he's always injured, and Irv Smith doesn't offer much more than just blocking. So yes, blocking is a huge concern. It's a huge weakness from all of our tight ends, especially Dalton Schultz. I don't think you should just draft a tight end to be a blocker. I think there has to be a receiving threat with him, especially when you talk about this wide receiver room. So now that I've kind of gotten that whole conversation out of the way, starting with the third round, I think the Houston Texans could take Gunnar Helm, a senior from Texas. Now, there's a lot to like about Gunnar Helm. He's 6'5", 252 pounds. This was his breakout season, 60 catches, 786 yards, 7 touchdowns. He also only had 2 drops on 73 targets. So really like that about him. Always like to see a low drop rate from tight ends. One thing to mention is he didn't play much before this season, really at all. So this is his only relevant season, I guess, production-wise. Now, what separates Gunnar Helm from the rest of the people on this list is really one thing. It's his ability after the catch. Gunnar Helm is probably the most creative yards after contact, yards after catch type of guy. He's a yak monster. He does the jukes. He can spin. He can hurdle. I really like his creativity after he catches the ball. And I think that separates him from kind of the rest of the pack in this tight end class. Now, let's talk about his blocking. Again, he's probably also the best blocker on my list right now. And let me just preface that's a really low bar to set because these other guys aren't great blockers either. But what do you get from Gunnar Helm and these other tight ends? Great receiving threats. And the reason why I think Gunnar Helm is a better blocker than these other 2 tight ends is because he can wall off defensive ends. He's got good size, 6'5", 252 pounds. Again, at that size, you're not going to be pushing and shoving anyone out of the way. He's not the best at moving them, but he can occasionally wall off, if you want to run like an outside zone type of scheme, which is what the Texans did a lot under Slowick. But again, you really want to hang your hat on the creativity after the catch, the fact that he seems to catch every ball thrown his way. I'm sure you guys have seen that if you've watched Texas. Just a solid tight end. Texas also asked him to do a lot from a blocking standpoint, and it didn't all look bad. Like, I don't want to kind of, make it seem like he's a bad blocker. I just definitely think his use comes more from a receiving threat, and that's a sentiment you're going to hear me repeat constantly throughout this video. One other kind of positive I'd like to say about Gunnar Helm is he can run really good routes for his size, and he can create separation for his size. So again, he can get open, he can create separation, and once he has the ball in his hands, he is hard to bring down and very creative. So that's why I have Gunnar Helm as a potential tight end candidate. Now, moving into the second round, we have a guy who I think is a sleeper, and I would love if the Texans drafted this guy in the second round. He's a sleeper. I don't know if that can be said anymore because apparently he's been making heads turn in the Senior Bowl. One of the best Senior Bowl risers is what I'm trying to say. So, his name is Elijah Arroyo. He is the Miami tight end who caught passes from Cam Ward. Now, again, his stock is seeming to rise after the Senior Bowl. A little bit about him: he actually was born in Miami, moved to Cancun when he was 6, learned the game of football in Cancun, Mexico, then moved to Frisco. He went to high school in Frisco, Texas, and then got a bunch of offers, ultimately decided to commit to Miami, so went back to Miami. Kind of a full circle moment. But there's a lot to like about Elijah Arroyo. 6'4", 245 pounds, redshirt junior. Before we talk about what's great about him, let's address the elephant in the room. Tore his ACL in 2022. In 2021, he didn't barely played as a freshman. 2022, as a sophomore, tears his ACL. Also got injured in 2023. So in the first 3 seasons of his college career, he had 11 catches. Let me say that again. In 3 seasons in his college career, he had 11 catches. So that's why he might be a sleeper. Definitely some injury history and concern. What happens in 2024? He finally has a fully healthy year. He has Cam Ward throwing him the ball, and he has a breakout season. 35 catches, 590 yards, 7 touchdowns, and he played 12 games. So relatively healthy season. 1 drop on 47 targets. So again, we're talking about a receiving weapon. We're talking about a dude who does not drop the ball. Now, what is there to like about Elijah Arroyo? I think he runs some of the best routes in this class at his size. He can get vertical. He also has the ability, the yak ability that Gunnar Helm kind of has. I think Gunnar Helm's more of a threat and more creative after he catches the ball, but Arroyo definitely has some of it. What I really like about Arroyo is he changes directions extremely well. Like he looks like a receiver at 6'4". You do not like when you look at him run routes, you're like, that's a receiver. That's not a tight end. And in some cases that's true. Again, he can hurt you from the slot. He can also hurt you as a true X receiver, as like a true receiving weapon. He's got speed and athleticism, moves extremely well for his size, runs really great routes. And there's a lot of upside. Arroyo is not like a finished product, sorry. Arroyo is not a finished product. There's definitely some upside there that you can chase. Now, here's the thing with Arroyo and some cons. The blocking technique isn't really there. It's reckless. He kind of lunges at guys that are bigger than him, gets thrown to the ground. He's not the strongest. He doesn't create the best leverage or leg drive. So again, if you're going to draft him just to stick his hand in the dirt and tell him to go wall off and block a defensive end, you're not going to get the most out of Arroyo. You have to kind of put him in the slot, use him more as kind of a receiving threat. And again, that's what I think the Texans need and should do with Arroyo. He's a very dangerous receiving weapon, and that's what I really like about him. He also has a lot of different versatility in the receiving game. He doesn't have to play slot. He can also go outside. And he's really just kind of your true flex player where he can play anywhere. Kind of just touching on this again, very loose player, very twitchy. He makes cornerbacks look silly at his size, great body control for his size, and extremely great catch radius, as you're going to see with the next guy as well. And with these bigger tight ends, they're just huge targets, and they can really just kind of suck in a ball that's thrown anywhere around them, which I really like. So, again, more cons. Only 1 year of production. He's not super strong. He's got a leaner frame for a tight end, and he's going to need to be evaluated by, the medical staffs and things like that, obviously without going said, with the torn ACL and things like that. But like I said, his stock has been rising due to the Senior Bowl. Definitely a tight end to keep on the lookout for. And yeah, I definitely think he could be there for the Texans in the second round if they want to go add another weapon, provided they draft, a receiver in the first round. Finally, let's talk about the last guy on my list. Now, make no mistake, this dude could be drafted late in the first round. I don't think the Texans should draft a tight ends late in the first round, but this guy might not make it to the second round. And his name is Colston Loveland. Now, Loveland, first of all, sick last name. He was considered pretty much to be tight end 1 going into this season until Tyler Warren just took off and became the player that he is. But don't forget about Loveland. There's a lot to like about this guy. He played tight end in high school, and you kind of see that throughout his instincts and nuances that he plays the position with. And he also has kind of been hurt. His production has been hurt by the Michigan quarterbacks this year. He won the Natty with J.J. McCarthy and Jim Harbaugh. Now that they're gone, he kind of got left behind. Wasn't eligible last year. Now he finished his junior season, so he is. The production definitely kind of fell off. But again, that's not something to to completely take your eyes off because he was affected by the Michigan offense, the very run-heavy Michigan offense. So in 2024, 56 catches, 582 yards, 5 touchdowns. He only had 2 drops on 82 targets. So again, another tight end that's not going to drop the ball. And again, he's very nuanced at the tight end position, likely from his just years of playing it since high school. And what do I mean by that? He has these little shoulder and head fakes when he's running routes that really kind of confuse the DB. He's also a really great route runner like Arroyo, but there's little tweaks, little things he does well that I don't think Arroyo does that ultimately elevate his like route tree and decisions and breaks and things like that. He can also win against inside and outside leverage. He knows how to attack different leverages. Again, he knows the tight end position extremely well as a receiving threat. And he's also, this is what I really love about him and why I have him ranked at number 1 for the Texans, is he's really good at improvising routes to account for a scrambling tight end. And don't get me wrong, Arroyo's good at that too, but I think Colston, he just understands how to get open when it turns into backyard ball. He just knows how to get the receivers off of him. And he's an extremely good receiving threat. And that's why I really like him. So again, there's a lot of things to like about him. Big target coming down over the middle. He can also win in the middle, down the field, on out-breaking routes to the sideline. He attacks the football with his hands, big catch radius. He can play all over the formation. Again, he can play in the slot. He can play as a true X, like a mismatch receiver. You throw him in the slot and you put him on a linebacker. Now you've got a mismatch there. He understands zones. He understands how to get in between the zones and squat between defenders. He also, again, can play in the slot. Really impressive ball skills. His body control allows him to adjust to passes thrown at, again, pretty much any angle. Some of the best, maybe the best body control at the tight end position, maybe barring Tyler Warren. He's also explosive enough, at his size, 6'5", 245. Again, a little leaner for his height, but that makes him more explosive. And he has yards after contact ability and yards after catch ability. Again, he also has spent a lot of time as a receiving threat. Michigan really liked to use him basically as a receiver, and he really showed that he can be a receiving threat. He understands the position. He understands how to be a receiver. Now, again, let's talk about the elephant in the room like we have been talking about. I'm just going to flat out say this dude can't really block. Like, he's not a blocking tight end, which, again, the Texans are used to that. We have Dalton Schultz on the team who takes a lot of the snaps. He can't block either. And with Loveland, it's not for lack of trying, right? He has a lot of effort. He really tries, but it's just hard. Like, even on his blocking highlights, he's getting pushed back. He's kind of just doing enough to keep the guy there. And that's going to limit your 11 personnel. He's not going to be a hand in the dirt tight end. Really, none of these tight ends are. And again, he won't move people off of the ball in the run game. And that's just a result of his high pad level. Then again, doesn't create the best of leverage. But again, if you're drafting him to just throw him and put his hand in the dirt and use him to block defensive ends, that's not what he should be used as. He's a 90.6 PPF receiving grade. Like, he is a receiver, and just think of him as a weapon and not a blocker. So yeah, that's really all I have on these tight ends. Again, 3rd round, Gunnar Helm. He might go in the 2nd. 2nd round, I really like Arroyo. I also really like Loveland, if you can get him in the 2nd round. He also might go in the 1st round. Like, Loveland is a very talented receiver. And again, if we're drafting a tight end, I would like it to be after we drafted a receiver and just keep adding receiving threats, keep adding weapons at that tight end room. So that's really all I got for this video, guys. Let me know what you think about the tight end position. Is there any chance the Texans actually draft a tight end high up in the draft? Or is that a position you wait till the 4th or 5th round, or maybe just ignore with all the bodies we have in the room? So thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and I'll see y'all in the next one, man. Peace out.